So guys, I come bearing an important question. Is God is? Actually, I don't know if that's even a question, but it is the name of a brand new movie coming out this week, so hey, there's that. Is God is directed by Alicia Harris and stars Sterling K. Brown, Mallory Johnson, Carrie Young, and many others. So before I even get into my review, if you guys don't want to hear this story, skip forward about a minute or so, but I'm going to share a little movie-going experience I had. This was my theater experience. So I went and saw this movie early at a public showing, and how that works, you have critics in their section, and then you have the public audience who just shows up. It's free, whoever gets there first. So I get there, I'm sitting in my spot as always up in the top, and as the movie's about to start, this host comes out and she's like, hey, we're having a raffle. First 3 people to raise their hands, answer some trivia questions, get a $25 gift card. So I'm sitting there like, cool, I'm down to play. So I'm trying to get my hand up. I'm not getting called. I know all the answers, but it is what it is. This woman sitting a couple of seats away from me yells out at the top of her lungs, no joke, bitch, you lied. You didn't pick based on first come, first serve. You're not even picking them up here. You picked all the people in the front row. And the lady kind of chuckles, goes, ha ha, it is what it is. She's like, no, I'm being serious. You lied. You need to do more drawings. And I almost blew up on this woman because am I losing my mind? Please share in the comment section down below. We are getting one step closer to idiocracy every day. This is an early free public showing to a movie that is not even out yet. And this girl is losing her mind over the fact she did not win free gift cards. What are we doing? But anyways, getting to why you guys actually came here. The movie itself is God Is. So the movie follows a couple of twins named Anaya and Racine. At very young age, they were burned along with their mother by their father. And as they've gotten older, they don't really know what happened to their mother. They think she's dead and they've never met their father, but they just know this guy's an absolute monster. In fact, he's actually named the monster on IMDb. You never actually get the name of this guy. You just find out through flashbacks what he did to different people he encountered. But as they get older, eventually they find themselves with a letter from their mom. She's actually alive. They did not know this, so they go on this cross-country road trip. Their mother gives them a task on her deathbed because she's very sick to go kill everybody in their path and make sure they track this guy down and kill their daddy. And if hearing that description makes you feel like this is a very strange movie, that's because it is. This is one of the weirdest movies I've seen this year. This movie is self-aware, but absolutely asinine, and that is for better and worse. Which is my warning immediately as I'm going to talk about this movie. If you're somebody who loves very serious movies, you don't like weird stylistic choices, you are going to hate this movie because this movie, more than any other movie I've talked about so far this year, is oozing with bizarre, bonkers directing choices. And as always, I'm not going to lie to you guys, I was not digging this movie for the first 10 or 20 minutes. In fact, it had that impulse in my brain like, don't walk out, don't get Taco Bell, don't walk out. I'm sitting there and I'm like, is this what the whole movie's going to be? Because there's some really weird stuff going on. But then this scene happened where they enter a church. And this movie immediately won me over. Absolutely asinine, but downright hilarious. This movie gave me some of the biggest laughs I've had so far this year. 3 or 4 belly laughs. I was gasping for air. My entire theater was laughing. There are some moments in here that will wow you. They are just so insane that you can't help but laugh. Which you wouldn't think would be the case in a movie that's tackling this old school kind of Quentin Tarantino-esque revenge thriller, but it is funny. It's very self-aware. It's very stylized. I struggled on the ride home with how I would relate this film because I've seen movies that are similar to this movie, but I've never seen a movie that's exactly one-to-one this movie. So kudos to this film. It kind of reminded me a little bit of old school Tarantino westerns. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Sin City, the stylization of it. Kind of reminded me a lot in the back half of the third act of Django Unchained. Not one-to-ones, so don't expect that stuff. I think those movies are better. But this movie has a lot of that hyper sensationalized style to it, which will make or break your experience with this movie. This is not a movie for everybody, which I think was what I was mentally conflicted about when I started watching this. It's a very serious movie. It's tackling very serious themes, exploring mental abuse, exploring generational trauma, exploring reciprocated trauma, exploring kind of becoming what you don't want to be, becoming a monster yourself in effort to avenge your wrongdoings from childhood, things like that, how you'll have a parent or a child who's wronged one another and they just let that kind of derail their entire life in pursuit of vengeance about that. So it's subject matter that a lot of people are going to be very uncomfortable with. A lot of people are going to have it strike a chord. It's going to almost be too much at points. But the fact that this movie chooses to tackle it in such a, I don't want to say cartoony, I don't want to say corny, But that type of a movie, almost a pitch black comedy, very deadpan humor, as opposed to just being a downright serious drama, it makes the movie way more digestible, way easier to talk about, and way more entertaining. This movie, for all of its faults it could possibly have, is not a boring movie. This is a very entertaining movie. Now, I really enjoyed all of the acting in this, but I'm going to keep it simple here. I think the standout of the movie, and he's not really a vital part of the movie, visually at least, is Sterling K. Brown. And it's funny, as I mentioned, that his title on the IMDb is The Monster, and he is playing an absolute monster. This psychopathic, maniacal dad that, through tall tales from other characters, you hear about this guy's wrongdoings, and he's one of the most irreprehensible characters I have seen in a very long time. But what I liked about his character is the stylistic choice for how they display him, because as I just said, he's not really in this movie a whole lot. But you hear a lot of stories about him, testimonies from other characters, which gives him, again, this almost tall tale essence to him. He's very mysterious, he's very sinister, he's very ominous. You don't know anything about this guy. You don't know his name, you don't know his whereabouts, and they never really fully show you him. In fact, I have a comparison. If you've ever seen the Powderpuff Girls, oddly enough, there's a scene with Miss Bellum and the mayor where you never see that character. You just see legs walking, you see hands on desks. That's how they utilize him. You'll just see his smile, you'll see his feet walking, almost as if he's a ghost. That's the tale they're telling about this guy. So I really liked that creative choice, and that's going to be a consistency through this review, creative choices, because that's really the make or break of this movie entirely. You like its creative choices. Now, segueing to a creative choice I did not like, this movie's attempting to do a lot of different stylized things, and some of them just came off way too weird for me. Now, I'm pretty vocal on this channel. There's a spectrum to that. Some people like hyper-realistic stuff. They don't like any style. Some people like the goofiest things imaginable, like Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. I'm somewhere in between. I do like my movies stylized, but I don't want them to be so asinine it almost takes me out of it. This movie, I'm not going to lie, had a couple of choices like that I was just rolling my eyes at. Like, I get it, they're doing it for style, but it felt like it had no involvement to the seriousness of the plot. As I said, this is a very serious story, a tale of revenge of these two sisters who have been wronged, so the subject matter here is very relatable, it's very heartfelt. But this movie has these weird choices, like making the sisters at certain points almost telepathic to one another, psychic. They're having full-blown conversations with one another mentally, no audio on screen, just text back and forth. And I'm a very fast reader, but those scenes were hard to keep up with. The text, rapid fire, message. Like, there were numerous parts of those scenes I don't even think I fully got because it goes so fast. So yeah, not a fan of that stylistic choice at all. I do like the stylistic choice of including so much humor here. I think that was a very wise choice because, again, even audience members who aren't really on board with the movie will have a good time with this movie probably, because some of the line delivery, some of the ridiculousness of these situations we have characters in, some of the ridiculousness of conversations they're having, they're just too much to not laugh. So I think that was a great choice. I also think this movie in the hands of a lesser director would just be an absolute bore, an absolute slog to get through, but Alicia Harris shows a lot of talent. Now, I don't know if this is true. I didn't research it, but they said before this showing, this is the first time she's directed anything, and I would have never guessed that. Because as I've said a couple of times already, this is a movie that the first thing you're going to notice is the commitment to the bit, the weirdness, the style, and it's just surprising to me that a first-time director would make a movie like this. It just doesn't feel like that. It feels like this would be by a guy like Quentin Tarantino. A lot of creative camera choices, very beautiful film. The color choices, a lot of monochromatic scenes, a lot of black and white scenes, a lot of scenes where black and white turns into color, color turns into black and white based on what characters are doing. So it's a movie that never feels like it's getting old, even though it is jumping around back and forth to different scenarios, different characters. Because of the different style they use to break it up, there's like 8 to 10 different massive choices they use. So the movie always feels fresh, which is another thing. At certain points, this movie doesn't really feel like a movie. It feels like a compilation of almost a mini series, like different episodes, because you'll have these characters going from town to town, meeting different characters, learning their experience about their dad. And getting back to the characters one more time, I do like the dynamic here between the sisters, both acting wise and just how they play off one another as twins. So you have Anaya here. She's kind of the quiet, reserved one. She suffered the most during the accident. Her whole face is pretty much ruined. And then you have her twin sister, Racine. She's kind of the loose cannon, off the cuff, has no filter character. So the movie kind of plays out, again, like a pitch black buddy comedy, like a good and bad cop thing, where you'll have different scenarios presented to these characters. You have Racine firing off the cuff, beating the shit out of people. You have Anaya trying to kind of keep her hinged. And the whole thing just is very funny. And I'm just happy that this movie took a theme that, quite frankly, I'm kind of burnt out on. I'm kind of sick of generational trauma, grief movies, and made it feel fresh. I don't know if I would say I loved this movie, but I kind of loved my experience watching this movie. Because again, this is a movie I have never seen before. This is a movie, an experience that you'll have where whether or not you'll ever hate this movie based on how I described it, it's not going to feel like every other movie you watch this year, and that to me is a huge positive these days. And then when you get to the end of this movie, it's an absolute bloodbath. Carnage galore. There's some stuff here, sometimes as a horror movie fan, I take for granted because I'm so used to visceral, violent imagery. There were people aside from me that I know this was affected because they were like losing their mind at some of the visuals you get in the second half here. So the payoff here is definitely worth it. I think it's brutal. I think it has something important to say. And although the movie itself might not work for everybody, I think there are incredibly strong moments throughout this movie that I think a lot of people are going to take away some fun with. Movie I had a pretty good time with, and I would probably revisit if given the right circumstance. So yeah, I recommend you check it out. If you guys also got around to seeing this one early or plan on checking it out when it comes to Amazon Prime, comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on Is God Is, or what your favorite revenge thriller is. As always, if you like this review, my name is Sean. Like, comment, subscribe, hype the video down below, and support the channel by becoming a channel member. But other than that, I will see you guys in the next review. Peace!